Welcome to Sounds of Resistance channel. The all-out ground operation launched by the Ukrainian armed forces with its sudden raids in the Kharkiv Donbas region completely shattered the Russian army. With Operation Lightning, which started last week, they advanced rapidly like a great storm and passed over the Russian army. Russian troops searched for a hole in the face of the invincible lightning bolt of heroic Ukrainian soldiers blessed with Thor's hammer. Ukrainian troops continue to push Russian forces out of northeastern Ukraine since Saturday recaptured Izium, a key logistics hub for Russia. A map released by Russia of the territories it claims to control in the Kharkiv region confirmed that most of its forces had withdrawn to the east side of the Oskil River. The river reaches the Russian border to the south, Izium in the west, and the Donbas region in the east. This means that Russia has ceded almost the entire Kharkiv region, significantly weakening its control over eastern Ukraine, which it has been using since February as a stronghold to continue its war. This loss causes them to flee the lands where they lost thousands to occupy them. The important gains of the Ukrainian forces in the east of the country on Sunday in the war we have left behind for 200 days forced Russia to withdraw its soldiers from the region in order not to be surrounded. The invading Russian soldiers and separatist groups in the east of Ukraine began to flee so quickly after the raids of the Ukrainian warriors that they left a large part of the weapon equipment in the region to the Ukrainian armed forces. It is also reported that the Russian soldiers who did not listen to the Russian officers deserted from the front. According to a Ukrainian official, the Ukrainians' counteroffensive is retaking large areas of land. As a result of the all-out heavy attack of the Ukrainian Air Force, artillery forces, ground forces, and special operations forces, the Russian soldiers are fleeing so fast that they even leave half of their equipment behind. According to Anton Gerashenko, advisor to the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Ukraine, the Russian soldiers retreated in such a hurry that they left a significant amount of weapons behind. Gerashenko posted a video claiming to show a Russian tank left behind at Izium, an important base for Russian forces in the Kharkiv region, emphasizing that this tank is just one of thousands of equipment left by the Russians. Recent independent reports state that the Ukrainian armed forces have recaptured more than 3,000 square kilometers of territory since September 6th. It is also mentioned in the reports that the Russian forces hastily fled the region in order not to be surrounded in the city of Izium, which the Ukrainian forces will soon seize. Russia's Ministry of Defense announced on Saturday that troops were withdrawing from the Balaklia and Izium regions, but said that these troops would be sent to Donbas region of eastern Ukraine, where two separatist regions have been declared sovereignty by Russia. The Russian Ministry of Defense has announced the objectives of the so-called special military operation to supposedly liberate Donbas. However, it is understood that this situation is not a retreat but a clear defeat for the Russian army. The Ukrainian armed forces, on the other hand, increased the speed of the counterattack and announced that it had captured another occupied town, which is at least as important as Izium. Ukraine's security service said the country's troops had entered the eastern city of Kupiansk in a counterattack, which would deal a significant blow to Russia's war effort. The security service said in a statement that Ukrainian special forces were stationed in Kupiansk, which is and will always remain Ukrainian. In the continuation of the statements, it was emphasized that the Battle of Kupiansk was won. In the continuation of lightning operations, Ukraine claimed additional territory on Sunday, in an offensive that rapidly reshaped the 200-day battlefield, a day after they routed Russian forces with a lightning advance that captured hundreds of square miles and strategic town to the northeast. Ukraine's rapid gains in the Kharkiv region have significantly weakened Russia's dominance in eastern Ukraine, which it uses as a stronghold to continue its war in Ukraine. On Sunday, President Vladimir Zelensky claimed that Ukrainian forces recaptured Chkalovsk, a village in the Kharkiv region that stretches roughly halfway between the cities of Izium and Kharkiv. The Ukrainian military command has described the ongoing conflict in the cities of the Donetsk region, which are a part of the mining towns and rolling fields known as the Donbas, one of the main targets of the war in Russia. Later in the day, in what Ukrainian authorities denounced as a tantrum for their losses, Moscow attacked infrastructure facilities in Kharkiv and deprived many civilians of electricity and water. The Ukrainian President Commander-in-Chief Zelensky said there was a complete power outage in the Kharkiv and Donetsk regions. In other words, as soon as Russia realized that it had lost on the field, it started to attack civilian infrastructures again. Following the Ukrainian advance, the Russians simply did not retreat. On Sunday, Russia attacked civilian infrastructure and power stations in the Kharkiv region to break the momentum of the Ukrainian army. Ukraine's dizzying pace over the past few days has shattered the months-long stalemate, boosted a nation's morale, and mobilized calls for more Western military support. General Valery Zaluzhny, the senior commander of the Ukrainian armed forces, said Ukraine had reclaimed more than 1,150 square miles of land since the beginning of September. A map released by Russia's defense ministry on Sunday showed Ukrainian forces driving Moscow's troops out of nearly the entire Kharkiv province. Russia's withdrawal from eastern Ukraine is the biggest embarrassment to Russian President Vladimir Putin's larger and better-equipped forces, since attempts to capture the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv were repelled at the start of the invasion. Amid heavy casualties, logistical problems, and falling morale, Russia's military performance has created discontent among pro-Kremlin bloggers and staunch Putin loyalists, creating new challenges for the Russian leader and raising a huge question mark. Is Putin really losing his war in Ukraine? On Sunday, the Russian Military of Defense announced that it will begin withdrawing its troops in two parts of the Kharkiv region, laying the groundwork for further withdrawal on Sunday. Spokesman of the Russian Ministry of Defense, Igor Konashenkov, said that soldiers will be taken from the Izium and Balaklia regions and redeployed to the Donetsk region. Izium had previously been an important base for Russian forces in Kharkiv, making the retreat a major success for the Ukrainians. Withdrawals in the Russian army are described by some analysts as the worst defeat for Russian forces since they were forced to withdraw from Kiev in March, just weeks before the invasion. The Russian military appears to be in total collapse, and indeed Putin looks very close to losing. Even though it seems to have shifted its target to Donbas at the moment, it cannot stop the advance of the Ukrainian armed forces. The Russian army left many of its ammunition to Ukraine and lost critical positions in the region. It is clear that they are now at a strategic disadvantage. Ukraine's goal is to completely expel Russia from the region, and the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, made definite and self-confident statements on this subject. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview published on Sunday that Ukraine's aim is to rid the entire country of Russia's existence. Zelensky said in a stern and definite language that their main goal is to liberate all of Ukraine, including the Crimea, from the occupation, and that they will not allow Russia to continue the invasion that it started in 2014. Zelensky described the invasion of Russia as cannibalism and said that the source of Ukraine's strength lies in its willingness to resist and the perseverance of the Ukrainian warriors. When Zelensky was reminded that his life was under threat and that he was constantly threatened with death, "We have no other way, and this is not our weakness." He said he believes this is the strength of the Ukrainians. Because Russia has a way out, they can return home. But he said emotionally that Ukrainians have only this house to defend. Under the leadership of their commander-in-chief Zelensky, the Ukrainians are fighting against the invaders for the most noble and holy cause. This is the biggest difference between the Russians. Russian soldiers are just pawns fighting for Putin's ego and ambitions. But Ukrainians, men and women, old and young, are fighting for their most basic rights and for their noblest and most sacred cause. This difference will always make the Ukrainians victorious against the Russians, and ultimately it will be Putin's army, regime, and attitude toward the free world civilians that are destroyed. Thanks for watching.